Yeah, first, thank you, Alessia, for hosting us. Over the next 25 minutes, we aim to delve into expert insights on AI innovation, business use cases, and the regulatory framework. But first of all, let's introduce our panelists. Could each of you briefly describe your role and tell us if you personally use AI in your work? Eva, you want to start?
Yes, so as mentioned before, I lead product team for cloud artificial intelligence at Google in California. So AI is my daily job, and I do it day in and day out in professional and private setting. In professional setting, we obviously build products for enterprises based on AI technology. And a lot of those products that we release, we actually use within Google ourselves. So, for example, the Cody, which is a code generation foundational model, was trained and used and tested by thousands of Googlers before, including myself. And in a personal setting, I use AI as well. As a former musician, I experiment recently with generative AI for music generation and playing that on my violin.
Interesting. Peter?
Yeah, thanks very much for having me. In a private capacity, I can sit here as somebody who's amazed. So when I compare the work that I did on artificial neural networks some time ago, and I compare it to what we see today with generative AI, it's sort of like looking at a toy car and looking at the real car. So it's really amazing and impressive what has happened in the last years. In a professional function, I run the business of Mastercard in Germany. And I think it's fair to say that Mastercard is an AI powerhouse globally. I think we're one of the leading companies in sort of utilizing, developing, and commercializing AI 1.0 applications, so everything that came before generative AI. And I think it's only appropriate that I sit between these two ladies, because I believe that this Eva is responsible for making sure that we don't do stupid things, and this Eva is responsible for making sure that we do smart things. We have, as Mastercard, we have a vital interest of doing both, of course. So we want to inform the public dialogue based on our experience with AI 1.0 adoption, but we also want to be the front runner in sort of adopting the new and emerging technologies. So fantastic to be here.
And how do you utilize AI yourself?
We put it at the service of our customers each and every day, and I'm happy to give some examples later if you like.
Okay.
The way I use it for personal use is just very simple, and I think you all have been bored of similar examples, but you know, to optimize my personal daily life, like produce a meal plan for children that is fit for, you know, a healthy feeding for a week type of thing.
And how do they like that?
So far it works. So far it works and they grow. But from a professional point of view, I mean, I have to say that, as you might have known or heard, the parliaments in Europe are not necessarily the most innovative. So I would very much like us to try and put AI solutions in some of the more complex things that we do. So one of the main things, as you might have heard just now, is drafting legislation. In order for me and my team to compile all the different perspectives and view, I believe technology could save us a lot of time, probably even deliver a better result. And so I'll be interested in doing that. But for the time being, I'm entirely reliant on the human intelligence of my excellent team, I have to say.
Okay. Eva in her keynote expressed optimism about potential use cases and potential applications. So maybe you could highlight one or two you're particularly excited about.
And I think the timing of the question is fantastic, because only last week we had our biggest Google Cloud conference called Cloud Next. So I had the chance to release a lot of those use cases and a lot of those products to the market. So I'm particularly excited about the use case that is probably less familiar to the audience, and it's code generation, because the foundational model not only can do text and images, but also generate code, which increases the productivity of any developer by augmenting the code or auto-completing. And the second use case I'm particularly excited about is image generation. because that one fosters the creativity, not only of children in educational institutions, but as well in enterprises, assisting the designers in the design of the products. So based on the input of the text and the guidelines given by the designer, the AI can come up with certain images and foster that creativity. And maybe the last piece, many of us are using already chatbots, right? So a lot of use cases are coming up to really those immersive search and conversational experiences where you will be, instead of going to the website, let's say, and searching through the FAQs, trying to find answer to your questions, and after the 100th questions, you finally find the answer, right? In the future, how we see the future is practically you'll be going to the website, asking the chatbot a question and getting an answer with the citation of where the answer is placed on the website. The same for employees within the enterprise environment, where if I want to check my, say, vacation balance, I will just put that into the chatbot instead of going to the HR system, doing a couple of clicks, right, and trying to find that out. So these are the productivity improvements and time to insight or time to resolution improvements that we are seeing a lot of times.
Mm-hmm. And Germany has traditionally been a powerhouse in mechanical engineering and the automotive sector. What's in it for them? Do you have some examples?
Yeah, of course, and we are in the same week as the IAA as well, so super important topic as well for our automotive industry, very important for Germany. So yes, and AI has been there actually for a while already. Let's take as an example visual inspection, right? Mm-hmm. Technology that detects, using AI, the defects in components, materials, or products, right? This has been there for a while, and in fact, even within Google, we are using the same technology to detect defects for our own hardware before shipping any of our hardware to our clients. The other aspect is a lot of things that are around customer service and customer support. Think about simple things like call center. I think a lot of us are annoyed by calling the call center, 1 for A, 2 for B, going through the menus. It takes a while, right? So I think in the future, you will just be connected to the virtual agent trying to solve your problem immediately. And if that doesn't work, obviously, a human agent will be able to assist. But I think these are the customer service improvement areas. Mm-hmm. Once again, fostering time to resolution and time to insight.
Okay, Peter, now is the time to provide us with a glimpse into the user's perspective. So how does Mastercard utilize AI tools? Have you implemented things like ChatGPT already?
So I think when we were talking about aligning for this panel, I was told that I should be brief because there are so many examples. So let me focus on only very few. I think the sort of most salient example is most likely a large model that we've deployed in the UK, where, contrary to what our name might suggest, we're running the account-to-account payments network, so not just card-based stuff. It's a fairly modestly sized model by today's standards, so about 20 billion data points, 700 million labeled data points. But we achieve a prediction accuracy of well above 90% on detecting fraud and financial crime. And it's all about making sure that you can anticipate a fraudulent transaction before it happens and prevent the money from being funneled from one account to another. And I think the proof is in the pudding is in the eating, so the majority of the UK banks are using this service that we provide for them. And there are others that could be quoted. I think that but this is all sort of AI 1.0, and sort of you were alluding.
Good old-fashioned AI.
Good old-fashioned AI, machine learning, whatever you want to call it. And it's a correct question to say, okay, what are we doing with generative AI? And I think maybe it will surprise you, but the first thing that we did when sort of ChatGPT became a thing was to put in place a set of guidelines, what we wanted employees to do and what we did not want employees to do with that technology. Because our business model is inherently based on trust and the veracity of the information that we transport from A to B. And for all the wonderful advancements that we have with generative AI, this technology also has the potential to proliferate, excuse my words, bullshit. And so we have to make sure that we have full trust in the outcomes of that technology prior to deploying it. So the answer is we haven't deployed it as of now. We're looking at it keenly as we believe that we have sort of the intellectual and experiential wherewithal to really be one of the first movers here. But for now, we haven't deployed it.
But with all that risks at hand, how do you encourage employees to explore the new possibilities, opportunities with generative AI?
So everything that's internal facing is okay. So experimentation is okay, both from a sort of business viewpoint and also from a technical viewpoint. But prior to anything being sort of released into production or to the public, there's a rigorous set of checks and balances put in place.
Eva, some argue that Europe is once again attempting to lead the world in regulation without significantly contributing to AI innovation itself. Have you ever been concerned about over-regulating AI?
Oh, I hope it was clear that I'm always a little bit, if not more than a little bit, concerned of over-regulation in general. One of my main principles that I did not specifically mention, but the general guideline that I have in my work is called regulation for innovation. So I would like to make sure that at least regulation is somewhat balanced. But out there, I think there are some criticisms that's valid, that is worth engaging with, and I believe I have done so, and I'm happy to continue to do so. In the same time, very often there are people that throw their head in the ring without probably knowing the details too well, and this was partially why, after discussing with the DLD team earlier in my speech, I decided to go a little bit more into the details to show that we have tried to balance, and I hope we provide some carrots as well, not just sticks. I do also understand that Brussels can be difficult to understand. It can be a little bit opaque in what we are trying to do. This is why discussions such as today's are very important. And I also think we shouldn't shy away from the criticism, but we shouldn't shy away from the myth-busting campaign as well from our side. So I think as much as sometimes might be difficult, we need to explain, might be lengthy, sorry about that once again, might be lengthy, but I think it's difficult to explain our ideas and how we try to balance them, and sometimes how we try to really fight for those ideas.
Peter, at DLD we like to emphasize opportunities, but AI is a powerful technology and there are risks. So what could possibly go wrong for Mastercard when implementing new AI tools now?
Yeah, I think it's sort of, so let me make 2 points. First, I have to postpone that question a little bit and sort of answer a little to what you were saying. I think it's very timely that, you know, what you were saying previously in your intervention, that dialogue is key, that overregulation must be avoided. And a dialogue must go both ways. As you may be aware, we've just co-founded the Center for Advanced AI and Cybersecurity with the UAE Ministry of AI. By the way, Ministry of AI, I don't want to put any ideas in your head, but it would be a good idea. And I think this type of dialogue is what's needed. And so we're always here to engage. I think to go back to your question, what could possibly go wrong? Everything. As I was saying previously, the inherent nature of our business model is that we guarantee the veracity of the information that we transport. If there is a statistical chance that the output of a model may look true and may be indistinguishable from something that is semantically true, but is in fact not true, then it is, even one instance of such an occurrence could be fatal for a business model like ours, and like that of many other players in the financial services industry, because I think that we share that DNA of standing for the veracity of the information that we provide. From that perspective, though, I think the emergence of generative AI is very good news, because suddenly there is a much bigger premium on truth than there was before. Yeah, so there's a lot of opportunity, but a lot could go wrong, so we're very cautious.
If like Peter mentioned, a significant challenge with large language models is hallucinations, where they simply generate humbug. How do you ensure this doesn't occur with enterprise solutions?
Yeah, and I would agree with Peter and Eva as well. I think the opportunities of generative AI and AI in general are huge, but at the same time the risks are there, right? So it's all about how we go about those risks and how we mitigate them. In a similar fashion as we did with cars, right? We didn't stop driving cars just because there are accidents. We started inventing tools to prevent the accidents or deal with the issues once the accident happens. So that's what we do as well, day in, day out within Google. And we started providing tools to deal with those issues. So one of them is, we just announced last week, grounding in enterprise data, so that to deal with hallucinations, you can actually post a citation to the source of the data that the model is generating. The other aspect is to prevent the generation of harmful content. So on that note, there are tools as well, and those have been, at least in our space for a while, called safety filters. So you provide confidence scores on how harmful the content can be, and that varies by different
What do you mean by harmful? Can you explain it?
Yeah, so we classified and decided to have certain categories. In our case, these are 15 categories ranging from war, crime, violence, sexual harassment, and so on and so forth. They are all listed on our website, and then we provide those confidence scores, how harmful that can be, and you can see and set the threshold. If that is too harmful, so to speak, then you just block the answer, and yeah, that's how you deal with that, right?
Do you think it's enough?
I think that's the right direction of travel. The sort of, and maybe some of the researchers in the field yourself need to comment on this. The concern that I have is that by putting in place these checks and balances, obviously we're sort of counteracting the very logic behind generative AI. You're sort of reducing the solution set, therefore you're sacrificing power. But I think that it's all about the balance.
Okay, I have one more question in my mind. There's a perception that AI is here and soon will, take over tasks autonomously, and I doubt it will be that simple. So, Eva, what needs to be done now to really implement those tools?
Yeah, so I think dealing with those issues is rather augmenting humans with AI, and I think you are doing that all the time to increase productivity, to increase customer satisfaction. And a couple of things need to happen. First, we need to have those responsible AI tooling, explainability. How do we explain the models, right? What is the black box, right? And there are tools as well that at least we provide that try to give some guidance, a la nutrition label, so to speak, that explain what is at least going on with the model, so that humans can take the decision whether to use the model and to use AI in that space and augment those capabilities. And then the second aspect is, you touched upon that in your speech as well, which I fully agree with, is working with the regulators, working with educational institutions to agree on best practices and common principles. And those might vary by country, those might vary by industry, but I think it's super important that we remain in discussion to foster innovation while at the same time putting the guardrails that are necessary in terms of tooling, regulation, and so on.
If I might add to
Yeah.
that, I think sort of if you look at the sort of survey data that is available, you will notice that adoption of even the first generation of AI is not pervasive, right? About 50% of companies have adopted that technology. How do we expect them now to take the next step? So, you know, my view would be, let's, you know, first learn to walk before we run. And for those who are not at the same stage as we might be, with a lot of experience in AI 1.0, invest in the capabilities and in the know-how to handle that first before looking at the next step.
Yeah. When reflecting on our own company, I sometimes wonder, how can we get everyone on board with these ever constantly evolving AI tools? Do you already have a game plan at Mastercard?
So I'm not sure I'm fully capturing the essence of the question. If you're asking sort of how do we make it more broadly available?
No, how we help employees to fully embrace the technology, to use it, to get along with it.
I think that, you know, the game plan has already been put into practice by first making sure that we establish ground rules. First of all, it's not a requirement that everybody works with that type of technology. I think there will be certain people who are more interested and more qualified and are more relevant roles to do that than others. And those will do so. And it's more a question of making sure that they do so in a clever way, yeah, and not rashly. And I think that's something that we have done, and that's the right first step.
But shouldn't it be a requirement?
No, I don't think so. I think it's, you know, I think that I have the luxury of working for a company with a fantastic workforce that is extremely motivated. And if they believe that they need this technology, they will try to use it without me telling them.
Eva, do you believe that local regulators need to ensure that all employees can keep up with this AI transformation?
Well, this is a great question. So, I mean, just let's think for a second. When everyone was talking about ChatGPT a year ago, and still is in a way, do you think there's probably more than a handful, if we exclude Estonia perhaps, a handful of professionals that are engaged in public administration that could perhaps join a private company in Europe that does something similar? Not everybody has to do it. Not everybody has to understand it. Not everybody that works in the public administration has to be at that level of technological advancement, understanding, creativity, innovative spirit, capabilities. But we need to have a plan. What are we doing with our public administrations? And there are regions and areas in Europe that have a plan. But how do we scale it? Because only if administrations are fully able to grasp the potential of technology and understand it, not only they will be more transparent, more accountable, they will be faster, they will be better, they would serve citizens better. They would produce results that they have not been able to produce in the past. Where are our plans to do that? Where are our plans to train that workforce? Where are our plans to see how we could have the state in a phone? Just like, by the way, Ukraine has. And you'll be surprised to know what they did. So I think this is something to reflect, but the one thing I forgot to mention explicitly in my speech, and I have to mention it here, and it accompanies me through my conferencing journey usually, to do that, you need people with vision. You have an excellent minister in Bavaria, but you need more people with a vision that are able to inspire the administration to reach certain goals. You need, I call them digital leaders. No, these are not politicians that are technicians, that are engineers. These are people that just understand that's where society is going, and we as public administration need to serve and deliver the services that are expected for us, from the citizens, from us, the type of policies that are expected from us. So there's a lot in that domain. I know, and I'm going to go back as a typical politician, elections are coming. But let's demand from those politicians to have the vision. Let's demand from them not just to be running for the next election, but to make sure they leave something tangible that's meaningful for society for 5 and 10 years to come. So there is a lot of work to be done. And I think, again, industry can help, society can help, but you need the openness of those elected officials that they're ready to take those ideas on board, put them purposefully in action, and have concrete results.
Okay, powerful last words. Unfortunately, our time is up. Thank you all for participating in the panel, and thank you, audience, for listening.